It started when I was like 9 years old. We lived in a block of flats, and every time I was home alone, someone would ring the doorbell. When I opened it, there was no one. Then we moved to a row house, where every apartment had 2 stories. My room, hallway, and the bathroom were in the downstairs, and the spiral staircase was the kitchen, living room, and 2 bedrooms. One night, I heard someone thumping down the stairs, but they stopped at the lowest step. I am 100% sure I heard them because the stairs were made out of metal and heavy wood. I asked my parents if it was one of them, but they said no. And if I was home alone and sitting upstairs watching Netflix, etc., I would hear quiet sounds and knocks from downstairs. We moved again, we moved a lot, to the house where we are now, and so much has happened these past 3 years. We have 4 bedrooms here, and I have been living in 3 of them. The first one really had nothing except for my decoration lights falling down from the curtain pole in the middle of the night. On my second room, I had a big mirror horizontally on my wall, and my bed right under it the same way. One night, I woke up to get water, which never happens, and got chills as my work desk chair was right next to my bed, like someone had been sitting on it. My desk was on the other side of my room, and the chair was right under the desk. My dog wouldn't have come in my room if I was home alone. One night there, I was about to go to sleep with my dog in my room. Mom had told me not to let her on my bed. I felt scratching on the side of the mattress and on the side of my thigh. I was about to tell her to go to her own bed, but as soon as I looked, she was sleeping in her own bed on the other side of the room. This thing also sat on my bed one night when I was about to go to sleep. I felt it on my feet. One day, I was reading a book, and in the corner of my eye I saw a hemline of a white 50s style dress. I slowly moved my eye to look up, and I saw this very young girl, about 5 or 8, who was around 170 centimeters tall. It freaked me out. It was like someone took a Sims character, made it a child, and stretched it, looking absurd, and as soon as I moved, it disappeared. Then I got to the room where I am now. I haven't really seen her anymore, just some weird shadows flashing from the corner of my eyes every now and then. But then, I got the nightmares. I saw them almost every single night. They were terrifying. Sometimes I would hear my friends in their graves screaming and crying. I got molested in one dream, and once a skin eater came into my room smiling. I now sleep with a tiny nightlight, a room door locked, and calm music throughout the night. I haven't seen them that often anymore. Just to clarify, the girl in the white dress had ginger hair, braided and tied with red ribbons, and she had blue eyes if I remember correctly. When I was around 12 or 13 years old, my mom moved my 2 sisters and I into a new house with her new boyfriend. The house was 2 streets away from our old house, so we moved in quickly. I'm going to try to explain the house now, so bear with me. The staircase was in the center of the house, facing the backyard. If I'm standing with my back to the backyard, looking up at the stairs, the living room is to my left, kitchen to my right. In between the living room and the stairs is a hallway leading to the garage, a bedroom, bathroom, and laundry room. There's a built-in shelf in the hallway. Between the staircase and the kitchen is a hallway that leads to the front door, with a front room and breakfast nook separated by a half wall. Upstairs to the left was the master bedroom with a bonus room office. Upstairs and to the right was mine and my sister's room, connected by a Jack and Jill bathroom. This house always had this feeling that I can't really explain. It just always felt off. The worst place to be was upstairs and in the front room / breakfast nook. Everything started very slowly, spare change flying off the built-in shelf in the hallway, to hearing footsteps upstairs when you were in the living room. It seemed as if the only people affected by the weird noises and weird feelings were my mom, my middle sister, and I. We decided one day to go through the attic-type space in the bonus room off of my parents' room. All we found up there was a bunch of white jeans. Looked to be True Religion jeans that were never finished. Now, I'm not sure if this is related at all, but after we found the jeans, everything went to hell. My mom's best friend lived down the street, so middle sister and I would watch her 3-year-old often. She was at our house, sitting in my sister's doorway looking into my mom's dark room. She kept looking into my mom's room, and eventually asked my sister and I, "Hey, who's that guy in Auntie's room?" We went to her house after that. I couldn't walk through the hallways without a feeling of dread, like something wanted to hurt me. My sister and mom shared that same feeling. Mom's room ended up always being dark no matter how many lights were on. The room was never bright. We all had nightmares constantly, but my oldest sister and now stepdad never experienced any of it. Our dog would always stare from the kitchen into the front room and growl, and he never stepped foot into that room. He would not go upstairs either. One night, I'm at a sleepover, and my middle sister is at home on her computer about to go to bed. She's falling asleep when she feels someone crawl over her and lay down next to her. She thought it was me because she didn't know I was gone. I slept with her a lot because my room scared me. She woke up in the morning with a huge black and purple bruise on her leg, and once she found out it wasn't me and that I wasn't home, she lost it. We moved away shortly after that. For years, up until recently, I had a reoccurring dream about being back in that house. I would be standing looking up the staircase and just having a horrible feeling in my stomach that whatever it was wanted to hurt me, but I couldn't move. I would end up going up the stairs anyways, but then my dream would skip to me being in the front room. I could hear my middle sister crying for help, but I couldn't move. I would be back at the stairs, looking up when I could feel something behind me. I would wake up quickly, and it always felt like something awful wanted my sister. It finally ended recently when I was having that same dream, but I was finally able to get to my sister upstairs, and we ran out of the house and shut the door. On the way out, though, there was the ghost of a sickly woman who was in the house. But she didn't give me a bad feeling that I had before. It was like she was the one helping to get us out. I've never had that dream again. I have a few stories. The first is mine, and the second is shared between my family, but mainly my niece. My family has always told me that when I was a toddler, I would stand at the window and speak up to the tree outside. And when they asked me who I was talking to, I would say Papa, which is what everyone called my dad's father, who died of cancer long before I was born, so I never even met him. They never really felt anything bad about it because everyone loved him, and I would laugh and giggle and just talk away for apparently hours. We were 4 when this happened, but my sisters are older, so they remember more, and they have told me countless times. After my parents divorced in 2004, my mom and 2 sisters, M and A, moved to a duplex next to my sister, her boyfriend, and her daughter, E, who was born a month before me. While we lived there, E developed an imaginary friend named Justina, who told her to do sinister things, and also did some sinister things in the house. Justina apparently looked like E, and was the same age as her when she died. She told E that her and her parents were in a car accident on the road we lived on. And later on, we found out that there was actually an accident near our house where a family of 3 died. Anyways, she would tell E to turn on the gas burners on the stove and touch them, and if she didn't, she would harm E's family, which apparently she was capable of doing, because while they were moving in, she threw a dime at A's head because she had reprimanded E earlier. This was a common occurrence. If someone yelled at or spanked E, and then they were alone, something weird would always happen. M was babysitting E, and E was doing the usual bad child behavior and got spanked for swearing at M, and then was sent to bed. Later on, M was reading a book for her high school class, and saw E come out of their room in the corner of her eye and start spinning on the computer chair, something we did all the time. When she got to the end of her paragraph, she went to yell at E to go back to bed, and the chair was empty, and kept spinning even though no one was in it making it move, and she was just speechless when she found E asleep in bed. Another time, A was babysitting and E was refusing to go to bed, so A yelled at her and made her go to bed, crying like children do when they don't want to go to sleep. When A went to sleep on the couch that night, she woke up and felt weight on her chest and couldn't move or breathe. When A and D walked in, it immediately stopped. After all this happened, they looked into it and found the article with pictures of the family, and Justina looked exactly like my niece. I don't remember anything happening, but I know I experienced some things because one time I was staying the night, and Dee was messing with the living room TV with the remote from their bedroom TV, and I was so scared because I thought she was coming for me and didn't know what to do. The too long didn't read. I talked to my dead grandfather, who I never met, and years later there was a sinister spirit that haunted my niece and her family, as well as my sisters on multiple occasions. When I was about 4 or 5, I remember waking up to somebody talking to me, but of course, no one was there. I kept hearing a little voice that said, "Hi, hello, good morning, how are you?" I tried finding the source of the sound, and according to my memory, it was coming from a plush lobster that I put in my closet. I noticed it was moving on its own, and I think trying to wave? Well, as nice as the little lobster was, I was terrified and ran out of my room to tell my mom. She told me the sound had to be the hamster running on the wheel, except the hamster was all the way downstairs, and I'm pretty sure that what I heard was somebody talking. The lobster wasn't mechanical in any way. It was simply a plush lobster with a hole for puppeteering, and that was it. No voice box, no nothing. Although I did have electronic toys at the time, I'm positive that none of them said anything that I heard that morning. Anyone else find that they experienced paranormal happenings more when they were younger? I was always complaining to my mom about my toys moving on their own, and she never believed me. I had this soldier toy holding a flag who would sing "We Will Rock You" when you pushed a button, but it stopped working for whatever reason, so I took the batteries and saved them for another toy. Anyways, like I usually would, I packed my toys away and climbed into bed. Bunk beds were amazing back then. I looked down onto the floor, and all my toys packed away, so it's time for sleep. Usually it's very easy for me to fall asleep, but for some reason I couldn't. The hairs on the back of my neck were standing up, and I started freaking out. I threw the covers off me and looked down on my floor. That soldier toy was there staring at me. I screamed for my mom, and she could see me clearly distressed as I tried to explain what happened. But she put it down to me just forgetting to put that particular toy away. There was no way I forgot to put that thing away. I was a very tidy child. And no judging, please. This is something that still freaks me out to this day at 23 years old. This is my experience of things that I can't explain involving my best friend. So our dads have been friends since well before both of us were born, and we've been friends basically our entire lives. The first experience I can remember was when we were around 4 or 5 years old, and he lived on a farm. The house was close to the main road, but a few hundred meters from the house is a fire trail that follows the ridgeline. It was a rainy night, and we were watching TV in the living room. There was a window that looked out over the ridgeline. I noticed my friend staring out the window. When I looked out the window, and I saw it too. In a gap between the trees, A humanoid in a long yellow raincoat was standing, staring back at us. Now, it could have been someone messing with us, a neighbor or just someone who enjoys the rain, but that closest neighbor was about 10 kilometers away, and it's probably another 25 kilometers to the nearest town. Also, when we went up to the ridge the next day, there was no sign of a vehicle driving up to where we saw the figure, and the only way up that isn't an almost 45-degree slope is the fire trail, which was covered in soft, sticky mud that would show signs of a vehicle. The second experience that I can remember, I was staying at his house. This was a few years after the farm incident, and his family had moved to a house in suburbia. So we're camped out in the pillow fort that we had built in the living room. Pretty normal night, junk food and movies. We both go to sleep, but I'm woken up not long after midnight by loud, and I mean freaking stomping down the hallway. I chalk it up to his dad leaving for work and being half asleep, until I hear the heavy breathing next to me, and my friend is staring, looking absolutely petrified. And then it hit me. His dad had started a new job recently that was FIFO, fly in, fly out, and had left for his swing a few days earlier. And unless his mom was literally jumping and putting as much force as possible into each landing, it couldn't have been her. I drift in and out of sleep for the rest of the night. Now, we haven't spoken about this for years, until we went camping with two different neighbors of his, and one of them asked if we believe in the paranormal, and then mentioned that they have woken up more than once to what sounds like someone stomping through their house wearing heavy boots. All five of us have had similar experiences with what we have come to call Mr. Boots. The third experience I've had involving him, and things that I could just not explain, we'd both just gotten our licenses, born a few days apart, so we got them almost at the same time. And we're doing as teenage boys do, and we're driving along the old Pacific Highway, just north of Kariong on the New South Wales Central Coast. Driving way, way too fast, and generally being hooligans, we round a right-hand bend, which is followed by a straight line into an almost hairpinned left-hand turn. I was in the lead with him just behind, and we round the right-hand bend, and he goes to overtake me. He almost gets in line with me, and he hits the brakes. Me, not 100% looking ahead, looks ahead to see someone standing on the side of the road trying to flag us down. Only problem is, I could see through her. My reaction was to get the hell out of there. We drove to a McDonald's and we sat in the car park, and he goes to me, "Did you see the chick on the road just before the hairpin?" I was absolutely rattled by this, and haven't driven down this road since this happened, regardless of the time of day. The fourth experience I've had is after his family had moved again. This time he lived in a flat out the back of his parents' house. I was visiting and was asleep on the fold-out lounge. I wake up and feel like I'm being watched. Eventually this feeling fades, and I fall back asleep, only to be woken up by a box of bolts being launched off the shelf in the connected garage, across the room. Now, you could easily say this might have been a rat or possum, but I don't know of any rodents or marsupials that can move a box that weighs several kilograms, let alone launch it 5 meters across the room. The final experience I've experienced with him was this Easter weekend that just went by. We were headed to my girlfriend's family farm as they were purchasing a few chickens from my mate. It was just before twilight, and to get to the farmhouse, you have to drive down an access road that is a floodplain. The river that flows through it has a creek that feeds into it under a small bridge, and before this bridge is a flat paddocks, either side of the road, both fenced off with no gates within about 200 meters of the creek. We're almost at the bridge, maybe 50 meters out, when all of a sudden a VW Beetle hurtles across the road in front of us. I slam on the brakes and we get out, assuming that someone is going to be hurt real bad since one side of the road is just a wire fence, but the other side is lined with half-ton bales of hay. I grab a torch out of my car and look around the area. There is zero signs of this car barreling across the paddock, through the fence, or crashing into the bales of hay. We're both pretty shaken up by this, but weren't hanging around to see if someone was out there. We get back in the car and drive up to the house. Later that night, my girlfriend's mom brings up the topic of ghosts, and we tell her what we saw. She looks like she's seen a ghost and recounts that exact same story that we had witnessed. Twilight just before the bridge. Volkswagen Beetle barreling in the same direction through the fences. I have a story from about 2 years ago that really captivates me to this day. When I've told this story to close friends, they tell me it's straight out of a movie. I really can't disagree with that. This starts when I finished my first year of college in the Bay Area. I worked my ass off in school and just wanted to have a wild summer, and I would do anything I could to get out of the house. My cousin was/is my best friend, and we basically did anything and everything together. When there wasn't anything to do, we'd take walks together around my rural neighborhood. I always lived near this old hospital, which used to operate as the biggest trauma unit in my area. Sometime while I was in high school, they shut the hospital down due to unknown reasons. Basically just sat there rotting for a few years before we found it. One day, my cousin and I were drinking a cold one, taking one of our routine walks, and ventured away from our usual route, through this peaceful random field. We stumbled across this huge parking lot after making it out of the field, but it didn't hit me that this was the old hospital parking lot that we'd found. We made our way through the lot until we saw this massively grand building standing outside the lot. The deteriorated banner said emergency room, and this is when we knew we had struck gold and stumbled across a back route to this abandoned hospital. We knew of this place, but we had never been there. We hadn't heard any weird outlandish urban legends, nor had anyone we knew been here before us. We pushed forward and checked the perimeter. To our surprise, the first door we walked up to had a rock jammed in it between the door frame, so we could waltz right in. This is when we realized this could potentially be a bad idea if we got caught, and we could suffer some real consequences. We agreed that we would be quiet and respectful and just make it a quick trip. This is where things take a turn, or a few turns. We enter the building, and it was the most deafening quiet I have ever heard. The sound of the door closing behind us sounded like a literal bombing. Once the echo stopped from the door, it dawned on us that this place was freaking creepy. We walked slowly, but the floor was covered in glass, which makes even the smallest steps sound like Bigfoot lumbering around the library. We found a patient room, which still had a bed inside. We stopped at the doorway to look inside because the floor looked sketchy. Out of nowhere, from around the corner, we hear the faintest, slow, drawn-out whistling. I've never in my life stopped what I was doing so suddenly. And I just stare wide-eyed at my cousin, because even a whisper sounds like yelling in this place. We both have our feet planted on the ground, because if we moved those too, we would make ourselves known. At this point, we both assumed that there could potentially be a squatter or guard of some sort. My cousin hand gestures to me that we have to leave and we can't just stand there because the whistling was obviously not going to stop at that point. We turn towards the opposite sides of the corner that the whistling is at and are tiptoeing out to a perfect science. Then, the whistling stops. We freeze. Then we hear the glass crunching from around the corner and we start running. Once we get to the door we came from, we realize that we didn't put a rock in the door frame when we came in, and the door is completely stuck. As we're trying to get the door open, the glass crunching is now also running. We hear the glass crunching until it sounds like it's dangerously close. I'm completely horrified. We turned around to try another door, and the noise of the glass is literally right in front of us, yet no one is there. No one. We book it to a door that says pharmacy and peel open the door. The pharmacy is completely empty except a single, perfectly placed and aligned landline phone plugged into the wall. The phone is off the hook and making a dial tone. The whole thing was perfectly lined up and centered with the whole room. I've never seen anything like it. The dial tone was so loud in such an empty place. There wasn't power throughout the entire hospital, so how was it working? At this point, I was in shock. We left and we never went back. I had heard of some other kids going there at night. They told me that they heard whistling and thought someone was lurking in the shadow the whole time. It's a really freaky world out there. Well, my lovely listeners, I hope that you all enjoyed that wonderful collection of haunting stories. These were a collection of stories of people or places that were haunted. Kind of similar to my paranormal stories, but I kind of just focused on specific hauntings in this case. Like the toys, the hospital, the guy's house, just like the house is being haunted, places being haunted, etc. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please hit that thumbs up button. And if you're new to the channel, I would really, really appreciate it if you would consider subscribing if you like the content. If you don't like the content, let me know what you think and why you don't like it. Let me know what I should change, fix, etc. down in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. Down in the description, you'll find links to all my social pages and a page where you can submit a story to me if you have one you would like me to narrate. All that said, friends, I hope you have a fantastic day and a beautiful week, and I'll see you on the next video. But until then, sleep well. I'm going to go take a nap.